Today, I'm making a fried ice cream cake with flavors that represent Mexican fried ice cream. So to get started, we're gonna make the brownie that goes on the base of the ice cream cake. And this is just a standard easy brownie. So here I have 3 ounces of unsweetened chocolate that I've chopped. We're gonna melt it with a stick of unsalted butter. Now, you could easily do this in the microwave. 50% power, takes a couple minutes. I'm just gonna do it on the stovetop because it's easier for me. So if you were to melt this in the microwave, you'd use 50% power, but here on the stove, I'm just using low heat and I'm stirring it constantly until the butter and the chocolate are completely melted. All right, that looks pretty good. You can see the mixture is nice and melted, super smooth. Now I'm just gonna set this aside, let it cool for a few minutes while we get the rest of the brownie batter together. So here I have a cup of sugar. To this, we're gonna add 2 large eggs. Gonna add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Gonna add half a teaspoon of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of table salt. Now we're just gonna whisk this together, break up the eggs, start to dissolve the sugar a bit before we add the chocolate and the flour. All right, in goes the cooled chocolate and last the flour. Now this is all-purpose flour, it's just 2/3 of a cup. There we go. You want to stir that in. Yeah, I know I'm stirring with a whisk. I like stirring with whisks. I feel like it's just more efficient. You want to make sure there's no more streaks of flour. A few lumps are okay. Those lumps will bake out. You just don't want to see any raw flour. All right, so this batter is ready for the pan, and here I have an 8-inch cake pan that you can see is well prepped. So I greased it, I put a parchment paper around on the bottom, greased it again, and then floured, because you really want to make sure the brownie comes out of the pan. Believe it or not, we're going to build the ice cream cake in a bigger pan. This is just the base. Into the pan it goes. I have to say this batter tastes really good too, so I'll leave a little in the bowl for the dishwasher, which is me. All right, level it out a bit. Slapping it on the counter, not only fun, but it also releases any air bubbles that are lodged in the batter, so you get a nice smooth cake or brownie. Always a good trick whenever you're baking. Into a 350-degree oven for about 25 minutes. You know it's done when a toothpick insert partway between the center and the edge comes out clean. It's time to make the ice cream cake. So here's the brownie that we baked earlier. Now I let it cool in the pan for about an hour, and then I turned it out of the pan and let it cool completely for an hour and a half. So it's not gonna melt the ice cream because there's no residual heat left in it. All right, for the ice cream cake, we're gonna use a springform pan. That makes it easier to serve because you can just spring the sides off when it's serving time. I'm gonna put the brownie right in the center. Now this is a 9-inch springform pan, and remember we baked the brownie in an 8-inch pan, so it sits right in the middle. That means the sides are gonna be all ice cream. So we'll set this aside, and here we have, dun, 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 the ice cream. So we're gonna make a flavored ice cream that kind of represents the flavors of Mexican fried ice cream. So this is 3 pints of good vanilla ice cream. We're gonna flavor it with a little cinnamon, teaspoon of cinnamon. The recipe calls for 1 1/4 cups of toffee bits, which is actually just 1 bag. All right, now we're just gonna mix this together. Now, tools of choice for making flavored ice cream is the super stiff spatula that I think was a freebie. It came with one of the appliances, and a wooden spoon. So I'm gonna take the ice cream and sort of chop it up with this stiff spatula and start to really mix the ingredients together. I think there's an ice cream store that does this to order on big marble slabs. If you're kind of doing that yourself, also want to point out, it is a nice big bowl. Don't limit yourself here and try to use a bowl that's just the right size because you'll make a mess. All right, so you can see, oh, the ice cream's starting to really move around. It's good. Takes a little muscle. All right. Just don't want any big lumps of vanilla. I could dive into this bowl, it looks so good. All right, saving it for the cake, saving it for the cake. Into the pan it goes. Now the trick is to get it on the sides around the brownie. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the sides first. Get the ice cream all on the sides, press it down in there. And the brownie at this point is pretty durable. It can withstand a lot. And also it's hidden underneath the ice cream, so you don't have to be too gentle. Now the rest of the ice cream just goes on top. Oh, it smells good. And it's a dessert that kids love. In fact, if there's ever any left over, my daughter, she'll run to the freezer and just keep slicing it off after school as an after school snack. All right, we're just gonna smooth the top, make sure it's nice and level. It's gonna get covered with chocolate syrup, so the texture of the top, not super important. All right, time to get this ice cream back in the freezer, covering it with plastic wrap. Now you need to freeze this until it's completely solid. It takes at least 4 hours, but you can easily do this a couple days ahead of time. If you're looking for even more culinary inspiration, check out the complete Cook's Country TV show cookbook. More than 600 recipes from every season are condensed into this book. It's jam-packed with every recipe we've featured on the show, plus helpful guides, tips, and product reviews. To order your copy, visit cookscountry.com. That ice cream cake is firming up in the freezer, and now we're gonna make a crunchy coating that we're gonna pack on the outside of the cake that really replicates what you get when you get fried ice cream. You know, it has that covering of that crisp cinnamon flavor, and we're gonna use Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Yep, the cereal, because it has the perfect crisp texture and cinnamon flavor. So here we have a cup of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. We're gonna grind it into crumbs in the food processor. There we go. All right, you want pretty even fine crumbs. Now we're gonna toast this cereal in a little browned butter. So here I have a tablespoon of unsalted butter. I'm gonna brown it in a small skillet on the stove. This is a great time to pull out a traditional skillet, you know, one with a silver color, because you can see the butter brown. But I don't have one in this size, so I'm just gonna have to be extra careful to note the color of the butter against the dark pan surface. Now the butter is just starting to brown, really hard to see against the dark surface of this skillet, but you can smell it, almost smell it's like toasted nuts. And that's perfect. You can see when it pools a little bit, you can see it's a little bit browner than usual. The smell is something else. All right, so into the pan go all the crumbs. We're just gonna toast these crumbs for about a minute until they get lightly golden. All right. That's pretty good. You can smell the difference. You can see they're not much darker in color, just a little bit more golden, but they smell toasted and warm. All right, so now we're just gonna spread these out onto a baking sheet or a plate. You just wanna let them cool. That way they'll be ready to put on the outside of the ice cream cake just before serving. All right, it's time for the ice cream cake. Now this is well chilled, been in the freezer at least 4 hours, but if you can do it a day ahead, it'll be much firmer and easier to work with. So to release it from the outside of the springform pan, just wanna run a paring knife around the outside. And depending on the kind of ice cream you use, it will be harder or softer. So if you have to keep returning this to the freezer to keep it nice and chilled, be sure to do that. And in general, I find the less expensive ice creams, not the premium ice creams, work a little better in this cake. They just set up better. All right, take the form off. All right, now at this point, you can smooth the outside a bit. We're gonna cover the edges with crumbs, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just wanna smooth them down. And so for putting crumbs on a cake, this is generally the setup. Oh, that's cold on the bottom. All right, oh, that's better. You put the cooled crumbs in a bowl and you have it over a rimmed baking sheet just to contain the mess. You take a handful of crumbs and you press it on the sides. So this is ice cream, obviously it's gonna melt on you, so you wanna work pretty quickly, and you should always feel free to return it to the freezer at any point if it's looking a bit soft. This is always a messy project. And sometimes, especially if you're making this for a party, you can do this part, put the crumbs on the sides, and then put it back in the freezer and just decorate it right before serving. So you get all this messy bit out of the way. My daughter loves this cake. I think she likes the brownie in the bottom, but also the flavor of the cinnamon and the ice cream is just so unexpected and welcome. These crunchy Cinnamon Toast Crunch on the sides. I mean, who doesn't love Cinnamon Toast Crunch? All right, that looks pretty good. You know, swipe the crumbs out from this little lip in the springform pan. Some of the crumbs will wind up on the cake stand. I kind of like that look, rustic. All right, here is the cake stand. Now to get the cake off this plate, just want to slide a nice thin spatula right underneath. Of course, there's the brownie underneath, so it's nice and easy to move right onto the cake stand. Oh, all right, now to decorate the top. This is not a fancy cake, so we're gonna decorate it with some whipped cream. Now, The recipe calls for actually whipping your own cream, putting it in a pastry bag with a star tip. But quite frankly, we're talking brownies and ice cream and toffee bits. I'm using the stuff in the can. So we're just gonna put it around the outside. You know, it's a down home cake. Let's just keep it down home. All right, now in the center of this, we're gonna pour some chocolate syrup. The chocolate syrup will set up, because the cake's nice and cold, some of it'll drip down over the slices. So you want about half a cup of the chocolate syrup right in the middle of the cake. Oh, that quite frankly is my daughter's favorite part. All right, last but not least, some maraschino cherries, the hallmark of any good fried ice cream. Now the recipe calls for one, but I don't know, I want everyone to have one. So this cake serves, 10 to 12 people. So I'm gonna give everyone a cherry. And that is a fried ice cream cake. Now, time to taste it. What kind of knife you use to cut an ice cream cake doesn't really matter. I like using, this is a boning knife meant for butchering meat, but I like it because it's a very narrow blade, which means less drag through the ice cream. And you can dip the knife in hot water, helps go through the ice cream a little bit if you want to. Oh, there it is. Don't you love how the chocolate just fills in where the knife goes? It's like a chocolate lake on top. So good. Yes. Oh, that chocolate dripping down the side. That is a perfect piece of cake. Mmm. Another big bite. The ice cream with that cinnamon and the cinnamon toast crunch on the outside and the chocolate, it is absolutely delicious. And of course, a little cherry of whipped cream. Marta's gonna love this after school today. See you next time. Thanks for watching. What'd you think? Leave a comment below and let me know what you're excited to cook this week. You can get today's recipes and more for free at our website.